The rain hammered the terracotta roof of the old finca like God's own judgment. But inside, Samantha's world shattered with a single whispered truth. I love her, Tom. I can't pretend anymore. Her husband's face crumpled, not in rage, but in the hollow defeat of a man who'd built a life on sand. Outside, their two boys, 8 and 10, oblivious in their rooms, played video games, the electronic gunfire a mocking soundtrack to the end of everything she knew. I remember the exact moment I first saw her, because it felt like the universe cracked open just for us. It was one of those sweltering afternoons in Seville where the air clings to your skin like a lover's regret, and the narrow cobblestone streets of the Triana neighborhood buzzed with the low hum of flamenco guitars drifting from open windows. I was Maya Ruiz, 28 and freshly divorced from a life that never fit, wandering aimlessly with my sketchbook under my arm, chasing shadows for my next painting. I'd come to Spain from Brooklyn 6 months earlier, fleeing the concrete jungle for something rawer, more alive, ironic, considering what I found instead. Samantha Harper was 35. Though she carried the weight of 40 in her hazel eyes, shadowed by the kind of exhaustion that comes from loving too much and questioning it all. She was American too, transplanted from a sleepy suburb outside Chicago 5 years ago when her husband, Tom, got a tech job in Madrid that dragged them south to Andalusia for the family adventure. 2 boys in tow, little Jack with his gap-toothed grin and endless questions about why the sky here was bluer than back home, and Ben, the quieter one, who buried himself in books about knights and dragons. They lived in a rented villa on the outskirts of Seville, all white stucco and bougainvillea, the picture of expat bliss. But pictures lie. I spotted her first at the Mercado de Triana, haggling over a bundle of fresh figs with the vendor, her auburn waves tied back in a loose ponytail that let a few strands escape like they were rebelling against the tidy life she wore like armor. She laughed. A real throaty sound that cut through the market's chaos, and something in my chest twisted. Not lust, not at first. Just recognition. Like seeing a version of yourself you'd buried deep. Our eyes met when she turned, arms laden with produce, and nearly collided with me as I sketched the old woman's wrinkled hand sorting olives. Lo siento, she said, her Spanish accented with that Midwestern lilt, flashing a smile that was equal parts apology and invitation. I mumbled something back in English, force of habit, and she switched seamlessly, her face lighting up. You're American? God, it's like hearing home. We talked for an hour right there on a rickety bench by the Guadalquivir River, the water lazy and brown under the bridge. She told me about the boys' school, how Jack had taken to soccer like a fish to water but Ben missed the snow, and how Tom was buried in code, always promising weekends in Granada that never materialized. I shared sketches from my portfolio, the ones of New York's fire escapes twisted into fever dreams, and she leaned in close, her fingers brushing mine as she traced a line. This is beautiful, she whispered. Like you see the ache in things. By the time the sun dipped low, casting the river in gold, we'd exchanged numbers. Coffee sometime? I asked, heart pounding like a kid on a dare. She hesitated, glancing at her watch. Pick up time for the boys, then nodded. Tomorrow. Same spot. That coffee turned into lunches, then walks through the Alcazar gardens where the orange trees perfumed the air, and the fountains whispered secrets. Samantha opened up in fragments. The wedding at 22, fresh out of college, because it was what you did in her world, stable, safe, the white picket fence repackaged as Spanish tiles. Tom was kind, reliable, the guy who remembered anniversaries and fixed the boys' bikes without complaint. But lately she'd stare at the ceiling at night, wondering if this was all there was. I love them, she'd say, voice fierce. But sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in it. Like I'm not even me anymore. I'd listen, sketching her profile in the margins of napkins, the curve of her jaw, the way her lips parted when she pondered. Maya Ruiz, the free spirit with a string of heartbreaks behind her. The ex-wife who'd left for a man. The gallery owner in Bushwick who'd promised the world and delivered silence. I'd come to Spain to paint my way out of the hurt, but Samantha? She was painting me back to life stroke by stroke. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Tom stuck late again, the boys cranky from heat. We ended up at a tiny Tosca off Calle Betis, sharing tapas and a bottle of Rioja that went down too easy. The place was dim, lit by candles in recycled bottles, the walls plastered with faded bullfight posters. Flamenco drifted from a corner, a woman's voice raw with longing. Samantha's foot brushed mine under the table, accidental at first, then lingering. Our eyes locked and the air thickened. "Tell me something true," I said, emboldened by the wine. She swallowed, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "I used to dream of being a writer. Stories about women who break free. But life, it just happens, you know? Kids mortgage the whole script." I reached across, covering her hand with mine. Her skin was warm, callous from wrangling grocery bags and playground swings. "You can still write it. Your story isn't over." In that moment, with the guitar strings vibrating like a pulse, she leaned in and kissed me. Soft, tentative, tasting of salt and secrets. The world narrowed to the press of her lips, the way her breath hitched. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wide, scared and alive. "Maya, what are we doing?" "Living," I whispered back. And just like that, the dam broke. The next weeks blurred into a stolen rhythm. Mornings she'd drop the boys at school, then meet me at a hidden cafe in the Barrio Santa Cruz, where the alleys twisted like veins and the walls wept with ivy. We'd talk for hours about her childhood in Illinois, cornfields stretching to infinity, my abuela's tales of Cuba smuggled across borders. Laughter came easy, then touches. My hand on her knee under the table, her fingers weaving through mine as we wandered the Plaza de España's tiled bridges. But guilt shadowed her like the Sirocco winds that swept in from Africa, hot and unrelenting. "Tom doesn't suspect," she'd say, voice laced with thorns. "He's planning this big family trip to Cordoba. Thinks it'll fix us." Fix us. As if their marriage was a leaky roof, not a foundation cracked by truths unspoken. I pushed it down, focused on the light in her. One afternoon, I took her to my rented attic studio overlooking the cathedral's spires. It was a mess of canvases and turpentine, sunlight slanting through the skylight like a benediction. "Paint with me," I said, handing her a brush dipped in cerulean. She laughed, nervous but dipped it anyway, slashing blue across the canvas in wild arcs. Paint flecked her cheeks, her sundress. We ended up on the floor, colors smeared between us, her head on my shoulder as I showed her how to layer shadows. "This is chaos," she murmured, but her smile was radiant. "It's freedom," I corrected, turning her face to mine. Our kiss deepened there, amid the scent of oil and possibility, her hands framing my face like I was something precious. For the first time, she didn't pull away. The boys noticed the shift first, innocently. Jack asked over dinner one night why Mommy was always humming now. Her cheeks flushed like she'd run a marathon. Ben drew a picture of 3 stick figures, a family, he said, with an extra one holding hands with the mommy. Samantha froze, fork midway to her mouth, then ruffled his hair. "That's beautiful, buddy. Who's the new friend?" "You," he said simply. "The one who makes you smile." Tom laughed it off, but his eyes lingered longer, questions forming in the lines around them. Fall crept in, the air crisping with the promise of rain, and our affair bloomed fierce and fragile. We'd steal weekends when Tom traveled for work, nights in a seaside cottage in Cadiz, where the Atlantic crashed like applause. We'd walk the beaches at dawn, her arm linked in mine, toes digging into the sand. "I feel seen with you," she'd confess, voice breaking. "Like I'm not just the mom, the wife. Just me." I'd hold her then, whispering stories of my own fractures. Coming out in a conservative family that loved me but couldn't understand, the tattoo on my wrist, a tiny olive branch from my abuela who got it too. "Love isn't a straight line," I'd say. "It's this messy curving but worth the detour." But detours have endings. Tom's suspicions hardened into silences, then questions. "Who's Maya?" he asked one night, casual over paella, but his grip on the fork betrayed him. Samantha deflected with a joke about market friends, but the seed was planted. I saw the storm brewing in her texts. "Can't meet tomorrow. Family stuff. Then we need to talk." My stomach knotted as I paced the studio, brush idle in my hand. When she arrived, rain-soaked and shivering, it was the first time I'd seen her cry. "He's asking for a trial separation," she said, collapsing onto the worn sofa. "Found emails. The ones where you called me lose my light. God, Maya, what have I done?" We held each other through the night, her sobs soaking my shirt, my fingers combing her hair as thunder rolled over the Giralda. "You woke up," I murmured. "That's not a crime." But dawn brought reality. The boys confused and clinging. Tom packing a bag with quiet dignity, murmuring about counseling second chances. Samantha chose to fight for the family, or so she said. I can't blow it all up. Not yet. The distance grew, a chasm widening with each unanswered call. I'd see her in the market, eyes downcast, basket heavy with routine. Once our fingers brushed at the fruit stall and she whispered, I miss you, before vanishing into the crowd. Winter bit hard that year, the Sierras dusted white, mirroring the frost in my heart. I poured it into paintings, Samantha's silhouette against stormy skies, her laughter captured in swirling golds. But the canvas couldn't hold her. Friends in the expat circle whispered, poor Tom's taking it hard. She's confused, that's all. Confused. The word stung like salt in a wound. Then came the betrayal, sharp as a serrated blade. It was early spring, the azahar blossoms perfuming the air like false hope. I was at a gallery opening in the old tobacco factory, sipping kava among pretentious chatter, when I saw her. Not Samantha Elena, Tom's sister, visiting from Madrid. She cornered me by the tapas, her smile all teeth. Maya, right? The artist. Her voice dripped honeyed venom. Sam's told me about you. How you're helping her find herself. Charming. I forced a nod, heat rising. We're friends. Friends, she echoed, leaning in. Funny because Tom showed me the texts. The one she deleted, but he recovered. I choose you. Poetic. But you know she went back to him? Therapy, family weekends in Rhonda. She's writing a blog now. Reclaiming my vows. Adorable. The room tilted. I excused myself, fleeing to the rain-slick streets, the Guadalquivir mocking me with its indifferent flow. Betrayal? No, Guers, era sure. She'd chosen the script, rewritten me out. I confronted her that night, pounding on the villa's door until she opened it, barefoot in pajamas, eyes red-rimmed. The boys were asleep upstairs. Tom was out, some late meeting. Is it true? I demanded, rain mingling with my tears. The blog? The vows. She pulled me inside, voice a hush. Maya, please. It's complicated. The therapist says. Complicated. I laughed, bitter. You said you loved me. That I was your light. You are. She clutched my arms, desperation etching her face. But the boys. They need stability. Tom forgave me. We can be friends, co-parent. Friends. The word exploded from me. After cut is? After you painted with me, laughed like the world was ours? You can't friend-zone a revolution, Sam. Her face crumpled and she sank to the tiled floor, pulling me down with her. I'm scared, she admitted, voice raw, of losing them, of who I am without this life. But every night I dream of you, of running away to that studio, just us. We sat there entwined in the foyer, the house creaking around us like a confessional. Outside, lightning forked the sky, illuminating the betrayal in flashes. Her wedding photo on the mantel, the boys' drawings pinned to the fridge. I trusted her with my fractured heart, and she'd patched it with promises, only to tear it anew. I can't do half measures, I said, finally standing. You have to choose. She looked up, tears carving paths down her cheeks. What if I choose wrong? Then it's not the end, I whispered, cupping her face. It's the beginning. But as I left, the door clicking shut behind me, I wondered if beginnings ever came without blood. The summer sun scorched Seville like a fever dream, turning the streets into ovens where even the shadows wilted. Months had passed since that rain-lashed night, and our choice hung between us like a guillotine blade, sharp, inevitable. Samantha's blog posts trickled into my feeds unbidden, ghostwritten apologies wrapped in scripture and self-help platitudes, embracing grace in the mess. Her words twisted in my gut, each one a reminder of the woman she buried to save the wife. I threw myself into work, the studio a sanctuary of sweat and solitude. Canvases piled up, abstract tempests of indigo and crimson, evoking the storm of us. A solo show loomed at the Contemporary Gallery in the Old Quarter, my first since arriving in Spain. Breakout potential, the curator emailed, but it felt hollow without her eyes on the work. Friends, expats like me, a ragtag crew of writers and photographers nursing sangria at La Carboneria, urged me to move on. She's straight, Maya. Or was. Let it go. Straight. The word was a cage, and I'd helped her lock the door. Then a text lit my phone at midnight. Can we talk? Not as friends. Please. My thumb hovered, traitorous heart overriding sense. We met at our old spot by the river, the Guadalquivir swollen from spring rains, carrying secrets downstream. She looked thinner, the sundress hanging loose on her frame, auburn hair cropped shorter like she'd sheared off the past. No makeup, no pretense, just Samantha raw and unraveling. I lied, she said without preamble, sitting cross-legged on the grass, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The blog, the therapy, it's all smoke. Tom and I, we're roommates now, polite for the boys. But inside, she pressed a fist to her chest. It's you. Always you. Relief crashed over me, mingled with fury. Why now? After the silence, the erasure. Because I was terrified. Her eyes, hazel flecked with gold, held mine. Of the fallout. Jack started acting out, fights at school. Ben withdrew, sketching dark forests where no one escapes. I thought staying would protect them. But kids feel everything. They see the ghost in their mom. She pulled out a notebook, edges frayed, pages filled with her looping script. I started writing again. Not the blog. Real stories. About a woman in a villa, trapped by tiles and expectations, who meets an artist with eyes like midnight and a laugh that shatters glass. Sus Maya. Our story. I took the notebook, fingers brushing hers, and read the opening lines. The first time she kissed me, the world tasted like figs and freedom. Tears blurred the ink. This is beautiful, I breathed. But what about them? Tom. He's moving to Barcelona.
À promotion.
We'll co-parent, holidays split, summers with him. It's amicable. Painful but clean. She paused, vulnerability cracking her voice. And me?
I'm filing.
For real this time. The admission hung heavy, a bridge rebuilt from ashes. I set the notebook aside, drawing her close. Her head fit perfectly against my shoulder, the scent of her, lavender and sun-warmed skin, flooding back memories of tangled sheets and cuddies. What do you want, Sam? Truly. You, she whispered. A life where I don't hide. We kissed there, slow and sure, the river murmuring approval. No rush, no desperation, just the quiet certainty of two souls realigning. But peace is fleeting in dramas like ours. The divorce proceedings dragged like a flamenco dancer's heel on wood. Endless forms in triplicate, mediations in sterile offices overlooking the cathedral. Tom was stoic, a gentleman to the end, signing papers with a pen that didn't waver. I always knew you were more than this townhouse, he said to her one afternoon, boys at his parents' for the weekend. Just wish I'd seen it sooner. Samantha cried then, not for loss, but for the years they'd both performed parts that chafed. The boys adapted in fits and starts. Jack declared me the cool aunt with paints, dragging me to his soccer matches where I'd cheer louder than the locals, my Spanish mangled but enthusiastic. Ben and I bonded over sketchpads. His dragons now had female knights, fierce and unapologetic. Like Mom, he'd say, crayon in hand. Samantha watched these moments with a mix of awe and ache, her hand finding mine under the table. Publicly, Seville whispered. The expat grapevine buzzed. The American housewife and the bohemian artist? Scandalous. Elena, Tom's sister, cut ties with a frosty email. You've destroyed a family. But Samantha stood tall, her new bob swinging as she navigated market stairs with chin up. Let them talk, she'd say, linking arms with me on walks through Maria Luisa Park. This is my plot twist. Our life wove together tentatively. Mornings in the kitchen, her brewing coffee while I scrambled eggs, the boys chattering about school. Afternoons, she'd join me in the studio, her stories unfolding on paper as my brushes danced. Evenings, we'd cook paella, burnt the first few times, laughter echoing off the beams, or wander the feria lights, her in a flamenco dress that hugged her curves, me twirling her under strings of bulbs until we were breathless. Intimacy bloomed gentle, profound. No fireworks but embers. Her fingers tracing the olive branch tattoo on my wrist, my lips against the freckles on her collarbone. I never knew touch could feel like home, she'd murmur in the dark, our bodies aligned like puzzle pieces long separated. Yet conflict simmered beneath the idol. My show opened to acclaim, critics from Madrid calling it a visceral ode to fractured hearts. But success pulled at us. Galleries in Barcelona wanted follow-ups. A residency in New York dangled promises. Come with me, I urged one night, tangled in sheets as rain pattered the skylight. The boys could visit. We could build something bigger. She stiffened, the old fear flickering. And leave here? The roots we've just put down? Jack's team, Ben's school. Her voice trailed, eyes distant. I'm not ready to append them again. It's not uprooting, I countered, frustration sharpening my tone. It's growing. Together. The argument festered, unspoken barbs and stolen glances. She dove deeper into writing, submitting pieces to literary mags under a pen name. Echoes from Andalusia. Garnering quiet praise. I painted alone more, the canvases turning sharper, edges bleeding into voids. The real fracture came unbidden. A ghost from her past. Tom's promotion fell through, corporate shuffle they called it, and he returned to Seville, leasing a flat in Triana, close enough for easy custody swaps. The boys lit up at double dinners, but Samantha withdrew, the villa echoing with what-ifs. One evening, after a particularly harmonious family barbecue, ironic that, he lingered, helping with dishes while I sketched in the corner. You're good for her, he said quietly, drying a plate. For them. Just, don't let her forget who she is. His words haunted me, a seed of doubt. Was I the artist stealing her away? Or the mirror showing her truth? Samantha sensed the shift, confronting me in the garden under the jacaranda blooms. What's wrong? You've been distant. I hesitated, then spilled it, Tom's words, my fears. Am I selfish, Sam? Pushing for New York when you've just found your footing. Her face softened, pulling me onto the bench. No. You're my courage. But the boys. They're my anchor. Maybe we compromise, summers away, roots here. The compromise felt like a bandage on a bullet wound. We tried. Weekend trips to the Costa Brava. Her reading drafts aloud as I mixed pigments. But tension coiled, a spring waiting to snap. Summer peaked in a heat wave, the kind that drives tempers to boil. Jack's birthday fell on a sweltering Saturday, piñata and cake in the villa's courtyard. Tom arrived with gifts, the air thick with forced cheer. Ben, ever the observer, tugged my sleeve midway through. Mommy looks sad again. Fix it. His innocence gutted me. Later, as guests milled, Samantha pulled me aside in the kitchen, flour dusted from cake prep. I can't do this, she hissed, eyes wild. The pretending, the balancing act. Tom's talking reconciliation for the boys' sake. Stability. The words landed like a slap. Reconciliation? After everything. It's not about love, she pleaded. It's logistics. He misses us as a unit. Betrayal round 2 fiercer because I believed in our rewrite. You chose me, I said, voice breaking. Or was that another chapter you scrapped? She reached for me, but I stepped back. Go then. Playhouse. But don't call when it crumbles again. I stormed out, the party noise fading as I fled to the river, collapsing on our bench. Stars wheeled overhead. Indifferent witnesses. Hours later my phone buzzed. I'm sorry. I panicked. Come back. But I didn't. Not that night. Dawn broke over Seville like a reluctant confession, gilding the Giralda in reluctant gold. I hadn't slept, the river's murmur my only companion, replaying her words like a scratched record. Stability. The word mocked me, mine had always been fluid, a watercolor wash of cities and lovers, but Samantha craved terra firma, the unyielding earth of family. By noon resolve hardened. I packed a bag. Not for escape but confrontation. The studio felt alien now, canvases accusing eyes staring back. I left a note for the landlord. Sublet pending. Heading north. Then to the villa. She was in the garden, barefoot amid the bougainvillea. Boys at a playdate with Tom. Her cropped hair tousled, eyes puffy. Echoes of our first reckless days. Maya, she breathed, rising. I thought you'd gone. Not without a fight. I dropped the bag, crossing to her. Last night. That wasn't you talking. It was fear. She nodded, tears spilling. God, yes. Tom's offer, it sounded safe. Like rewinding the tape. But I can't. Not after tasting real. She gripped my hands, knuckles white. The blog was a lie. The halfway house. I want all of it. You, the mess, the unknown. We sank to the grass, her head on my lap as I stroked her hair. Then let's build it right, I said. No half measures. New York in fall, me for the residency, you with a guest spot at a lit center. Boys with Tom for stretches, then us in a brownstone with a garden for dragons and soccer balls. Her laugh bubbled watery. A brownstone? With snow for Ben. And cornfields for you, I teased. Fake ones if we have to. The plan unfolded like a map unfolding. Calls to agents, emails to schools. Tom, bless his steady heart, agreed to primary custody for the transition. Give her wings, he said over coffee, no bitterness left. The boys, briefed gently, lit up at adventures promised. Statue of Liberty bigger than the cathedral? Packing the villa was catharsis. Boxes of Tom's shirts shipped north, Samantha's notebooks tucked beside my paints. We sold the finca, proceeds split fair. And in the empty rooms we danced one last flamenco, clumsy and free laughter chasing ghosts. Fall found us in Brooklyn, the brownstone a fixer-upper in bed-stewy creaky floors, a skylight begging for stars. Samantha enrolled in an MFA program at NYU. Her stories evolving from Andalusian echoes to urban heartbeats. Women reclaiming streets, not just selves. I curated a joint show, her words beside my images, Fractured Light it was called. Critics raved. A testament to love's reinvention. The boys visited monthly, trains from Chicago where Tom had relocated for family support. Jack scored goals on concrete pitches. Ben's dragons populated Central Park sketches. Holidays blurred borders. Thanksgiving in Seville with my abuela's kin. Christmas under a tree strung with olive branches. Challenges came as they do in human tales. Samantha's first reading, a short story veiled as fiction, our kiss immortalized in prose, drew stares from conservative lit circles. Too autobiographical, one reviewer sneered. She faltered, old doubts whispering, but I pulled her on stage at the next event, reading alongside. This is our truth. Unapologetic. My residency stretched, temptations lurking, flirtations at openings, the artist's curse of fleeting connections. But home was her laugh over burnt bagels, her hand in mine at midnight movies. You're my plot anchor, she'd say, echoing Ben's old drawings. One winter night, snow blanketing the stoop like forgiveness, she proposed, not with rings but words. We were on the fire escape, city lights twinkling below, mugs of hot chocolate steaming. Mérime, Maya Ruiz. Not for vows or stability, but because with you I write my own ending. I kissed her, snowflakes melting on our lashes. Yes, 1,000 times. The wedding was small, human, spring in Prospect Park under blooming cherries. The boys walked her down the aisle of strung lights, Jack scattering petals with soccer flair, Ben clutching a notebook of vows he'd helped pen. Tom stood witness, arm around a new partner, his smile genuine. Elena even came, thawing with a stiff hug. For the kids. We exchanged bands, simple gold, engraved with me lose, and danced to a playlist blending flamenco and Motown. Her in white linen, me in a suit tailored sharp. As dusk fell, the city hummed around us, a chorus to our reinvention. Years folded forward. Samantha's novel, Terra Incognita, hit shelves to acclaim, a tale of expatriate hearts finding harbor. My gallery in Williamsburg thrived. Walls alive with our shared visions. The boys grew. Teens now, Jack captaining the school team, Ben penning zines on queer nights. They called us the squad, rolling eyes at our sappiness. Not all endings tie neat bows. We fought. Over moves to LA for her book tour. Custody tweaks when Tom remarried. Losses came too. My abuela passing, her stories silenced, leaving voids we filled with new ones. But through it our love deepened, a river carving canyons, enduring. On our 10th anniversary, back in Seville for a whim, flights cheap, hearts nostalgic, we stood in that Triana market, figs in hand. The vendor, older now, winked. Back for more trouble? Samantha laughed, pulling me close. The best kind. As the Guadalquivir flowed on, carrying our past downstream, I knew. She had a husband, 2 kids, until she met me. And everything changed. Not suddenly but surely. Into something human, whole. A story worth every shattered page.